Hello, friends, and welcome back to r/ProRevenge. Let's start with the juicy story of how our OP bankrupted his boss who set him up badly. But before we begin, don't forget to subscribe to our channel if you're new here and turn on notifications so you don't miss a new video every single day. Here we go. Bankruptcy. Twice. So years ago, I broke a couple of bones on my job and the boss gave me a hard time. I should lie and tell the company doctor that it happened on my own time, which was not the case, and that it was my own fault. It was not. So he shouldn't get into trouble for it. And he told me that when I was in the hospital. And he wanted me to come back the next day. How, in a wheelchair? And don't call in sick, but take holiday. Yeah. I didn't do that, of course, and then he sacked me while I was sick. So I called my lawyer to take care of it, but that was not the end. He made up stories about me to my colleagues, and they started calling me, "Boss says you did A and B, but we know you for years, and we don't believe him. So what's the story?" So I told them what was going on, and one by one, they asked me if I knew of a better employer for them to get out of there because of his behavior. So I made some calls to business friends of mine and got myself a new job at one of them. I was still in the hospital for months. I said yes to the job, took 2/3 of the staff with me, took 2/3 of the customers to my new job with me. And the old employer had to file for bankruptcy. He tried to sue me, lost since he sacked me. My contract was not valid anymore. It was his choice to sack me, not mine. When he started all over with the last 1/3 of staff to build a new company, I approached the good colleagues that were left, never mind about the lesser ones, proactively, and the 2/3 came themselves, and offered them a job as well if they could take the customers with them. Needless to say, he went bankrupt again within half a year, lost his company, house, and from what I heard, he's not out of the woods yet. Too bad for him. He slandered you and was horrible. He did all that to himself. Good for you for not taking it quietly. And our second story. You can't tell people we're closed. I work in a restaurant supply store. It's a giant warehouse that sells all the stuff you'd need to run a restaurant. About 10 months ago, we changed our hours. Google still had our old hours posted, but it's been 10 months, so it shouldn't be a surprise anymore. Being a warehouse, we have 2 large doors with big metal gates. When we close for the day, we put down the big metal gate over the entrance, but leave the one over the exit open so people can, get this, exit the building. It's not for people who arrived after closing to come in and shop. It's not for you to come back in because you forgot something. It's not an auxiliary entrance. Well, a week ago, we got a call from one of our corporate offices. He almost fired our assistant branch manager for turning away customers after we closed. So now he lets them come in and shop after close. 2 days ago, we get another call from corporate. They're demanding to know why there's been such a sudden rise in the amount of overtime the front-end employees are getting. Our assistant branch manager calmly explained it was because they couldn't start their closing duties until all the customers had left, and as we're no longer turning customers away after closing, we had people still in the store shopping until nearly an hour after closing, and making sure the front end was closed properly took at least 45 minutes on its own. That's almost 2 extra hours a day. Guess what we get to tell customers when they show up after closing now? I'm sorry, we're closed. Corporate thinks about the income and assumes that staff time is free. Yeah, right. And our last story. Steal my hard-earned money? Consider your life ruined. I used to work for a large retail company that sells electronics. We'll call them Shimry's Shmelectronics. Sure. And seriously, if you work for them, I'm sorry. And I recommend you find a new job that'll actually get you somewhere in life. Anyway, if you don't know how it works at Shimry's, if you're a salesperson, more specifically in the audio-video department, you're paid one of 2 ways. You're either paid in commission, so long as your sales equal enough to make it to minimum wage pay rates, or if you cannot make enough sales to reach minimum wage rates, you're cushioned by being paid minimum wage exactly. To explain a little nicer, say minimum wage is $300 for 1 week of work, but I ended up making $600 in sales. Well, that's all fine and well. I'd get paid $600, but then say the next week I didn't make that much and only did $250 in sales. Well, they just pay me $300 instead. Now I know what you're thinking. Oh, that seems nice. What's the problem with that? The problem was, at least in my case back in the day when I used to work for them, if your sales didn't get above the minimum wage for 3 weeks in a row, you were immediately terminated. This means slow months when there were no holidays or big doorbuster sales were a teeth grinder. You would be checking your sales report every 5 minutes to make sure you at least had a penny over what you needed to be safe for the next few weeks. I was generally all right with my sales, but the management in this place, or at the very least the supervisors, were big effing a-holes. They were also paid differently. A supervisor was paid an hourly wage, well above the minimum, mind you, and they had commission stacked with their hourly wage. So as you can expect, there were a lot of sales snipers and stolen sales by our supervisors. A sales sniper is what my coworkers and I called it when a supervisor would target and lock on anyone who was dressed a little bit nicer and rush over to them as fast as possible to try and force them into a sale. Now that we're caught up, this is where my story starts. I had a supervisor who was in all ways the worst human being in the history of ever. Okay, there was Stalin and Hitler, but he's maybe top 10 then? Anyway, to give context on the kind of emotional and mental trauma he gave me, one day I came into work on Veterans Day, and my grandfather was in the 8th Air Force Division in World War II. In honor of him, I had one of his 8th Air Division ties, since he passed away about 10 years ago prior to these events. Admittedly, it was a little small on me, but I still thought it made me look clean and respectable. Other veterans who came to the store complimented me and congratulated me for my grandpa's service. But then my supervisor sees it. We'll call him D. D. Yo, what's up with your tie? Me. Oh, it was my grandfather's. He was an Air Force combat gunner in the 8th Division Air Force during World War II. D. Geez, I'd feel sorry for anyone who saw him wearing that thing. It looks ridiculous. If I had a kid, I wouldn't let him wear it. I felt my face grow red, and I glared at him with the most hateful glare I've ever given anyone. I simply said, "You are the most disgusting person I've ever met," and walked off to do something mindless to get my mind clear. In any case, this story is about a sale I made with a gentleman who was such a cool guy. We just finalized a sale on his new 75-inch 4K TV, which included the whole works. TV insurance, all the best cables, installation, wall mounts, a full sound system. In other words, commission out the butt. I get all my paperwork finished up and put my papers with all his stuff, so when the delivery team takes it out the following day, I get credit for the sale. This sale would have made me $500 in commission alone. It was a huge deal for me. I had the following day off, so I was ready to relax and enjoy my hard-earned pay. The day I returned to work, I go to check my sales report and see that my sale was not posted in there. My eyes widened and I almost immediately panicked. I rush up to the sales office and ask them to search the record for any sales with a large TV, wall mount, etc., etc. They find it, and they saw it was under D's name. I was furious. I went to the store manager's office and screamed in rage how I wanted this fixed and I wanted my sale back. She told me how payroll was already completed for the week and all sales have been finalized, so it'd be impossible for me to get the commission. I knew it wasn't her fault. I stomped my way back down to my department and handed my name badge and my walkie-talkie to D, and I stared him in the eyes and said, "You will pay for this." I turned to walk out, quitting that effed up job. A few years pass, and I'm now an auditor for a credit company. I shuffle through some clients' papers to see who I need to review the accounts of, and I find D's name on one of the papers. My eyes widen and I grin. Not just a normal grin, but the kind of grin the Grinch gave when he devised a disgustingly horrible plan. I looked through his file and saw that he'd filed for a mortgage loan a month previously. It was a huge loan that equaled $350,000, and at the moment it was pre-approved, but pending final review since it was such a huge amount. I smiled as I looked into his file, and I remembered how often he boasted at work how his parents had basically paid for everything up to the point where he was 27. Sad, I know. Well, after I'd finished looking through his estimated earnings, I noticed he failed to mention the part where his parents would be paying for him to live. Because of this, all the things that he listed under his name for financial collateral, his car, his inflated bank account, his credit score that was shot through the roof due to his parents paying all his bills and credit cards, basically anything he could list that could make him look financially stable. After this, I marked all those items as invalid properties for client to submit because lawfully they are the property of his parents and not his. I submitted my report and a little bit later reviewed his files. His credit score went from 800 to a 300, and his file marked him as basically penniless. His loan was resubmitted and denied, and now any loans or credits he tries to submit are now immediately flagged due to his failure to submit proper financial reports. This means that basically he will never be approved for any credit cards, mortgage loans. Hell, even if he wanted an apartment, no landlord would ever approve someone with the new financial profile he had. I single-handedly ruined his chances of ever being able to live anywhere but with someone else as a roommate or on the street. For that reason, I wake up almost every morning with a large grin and a warm cup of coffee, knowing my world is at peace and balance is restored to my universe. I guess if Mommy and Daddy could cover 27 years of his life, then I'm sure they'll be able to cover 7 more. Hey guys, thank you all for watching the video, and I'll see you in the next one.